Transit point. Where's the transit point? Clear the area of objects. these to transit point. Oh, but I need to finish that up. Side. Garage. I didn't like this one actually. Why? What is this one? Ah, se acabó. Se acabó su gas. No sé por qué.
Good job there. We need a base of operations on the other side of the river. And that means we need a bridge. I don't suppose you've built a bridge before, right? Well, there's a first for everything. Oh, and if you want a steady supply of concrete slabs, I have just the thing. You can send a concrete slab convoy from the warehouse to the harbor base. Not essential, but it should keep our reserves up.
Okay. So, this is es el otro? Let's actually spectate this one. ¿Cuánto nos falta per truck? Remaining 200, 400. Objectives. Mountain base will be restored. What? Bridges. Send a convoy with concrete to the harbor base. Convoy. A ver si quiero poner eso. Ah, pero ya está el bridge. Sí, es ese. Alright, a ver. Ah, chinga. Oh. Too short. Fue un error. Okay. Ok, ya llegó. Ya casi.
weather any storm. Remember, our job isn't just to fix what's broken. It's to make life better for folks around here. the industrial heart of the region, so it's vital we get it pumping again. And that means delivering lots of supplies. You'll need to build a road and then plan a route between Valhalla and a transit point. And there's a nearby village on the harbor that could use your help. If you have the time. Strictly, we're not required, but I think you like to help folks out. Panama is in sore need of supplies. So you could plot a route to it from the transit point. I'm sure the folks there would appreciate it.
Bro, aquella vez me la llegué aparte. Oh my goodness. What the fuck, bro? Sí, delante, sí. It's not turning now. Ya se va a caer. Oh, se va a caer. Start plotting. Transit point to Panama. Where's Panama? Right. Oh. ¿Qué tal si lo traía por acá, verdad?
agenda is the gas power plant and the steel pipes facility. hasn't it? You could say that about most things around here. Looks like the steel pipes facility needs major repairs. And by major, I mean more than you and I can handle in a few minutes. Set up a route from Mbala to the steel pipes facility. Our people will take care of the rest.
Some people are terrified of death. Others die a little every day because they can't stop thinking about it. Have you ever wondered why we chase life so desperately? Why we fight to live longer, as if we could outrun something that's been waiting for us since the beginning? If we swallow vitamins, apply skincare, go to therapy, hit the gym, meditate, eat gluten-free, sugar-free, pleasure-free diets, and for what? To stretch time? Pull the blanket of life just a bit further? Well, it never covers everything. You tug it up to your chin, your feet get big. You pull it to your feet, your chest is exposed. That's what it means to live longer. We pull from one side and uncover another. The longevity industry is already worth more than $60 billion a year, and it keeps growing because the promise of a longer life sells better than the promise of happiness. The dream of never dying is the most seductive of all. But nobody tells you what really happens if that dream comes true. Isaac Asimov did. In a short, sharp surgical story, he described what happens after death. Rather, what doesn't. No angels, no tunnels of light. You continue, but without a body, without a mouth, without sleep, without an end. Only consciousness and a voice that watches you. That's what this story is about. The horror that comes when all that's left is to think. To think and think and think forever. But before diving into that abyss, the final answer, let's look at the surface. Let's talk about this strange, desperate need we have to live forever. Maybe the true human mistake wasn't fearing death. Maybe it was wanting life too much. The first human who buried a body didn't do it out of respect or hygiene. He did it out of fear. Fear of watching flesh rot. Fear of realizing that one day it would be his turn. Death was humanity's first certainty, and we've never accepted it since. That's why we created gods, rituals, pyramids, heavens, and hells. And today we create corporations, foundations, and artificial intelligences. The reason is the same. We don't want to disappear. That's what drives us, and it's what eats us alive. Death to us isn't just the end of life, it's the end of the story. And we are story-driven creatures. We panic when the story stops. That's why every culture, from Gilgamesh searching for immortality to Silicon Valley billionaires injecting young blood, has tried to outrun death, as if the 21st century were a new Middle Ages with Wi-Fi. But here's the real question. Is immortality really a reward, or is it the greatest mistake we could make? Isaac Asimov, a man of science and fiction, knew the difference between progress and madness. He once said, The saddest aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom. And maybe there's no better proof of that than our obsession with eternal life. We have technology that can preserve bodies in tanks of liquid nitrogen, but we still don't know what to do with a lonely Sunday. We can create algorithms that promise to store our consciousness in the cloud, but we can't have a 10-minute conversation with our parents without checking our phones. This desire to live forever, so natural and so justified, might be the deepest mistake of our species, because it's a desire born from fear, and when fear becomes a plan, it creates monsters. Ernest Becker, a psychologist and anthropologist, won the Pulitzer Prize by writing that all culture is, at its core, a denial of death. He didn't mean we deny it just in words. We build entire civilizations to hide the corpse. Once we built temples, now we build startups. The difference between Asimov and the modern transhumanists is that Asimov had the courage to follow the idea all the way to the end. And the end isn't beautiful. Humanity's obsession with not dying has created religions, but it's also created genocides. It's justified holy wars, sacrifices, eugenics. In the name of eternal life, people have killed and still kill. The strangest thing is that deep down we know it's impossible, but we keep going because we don't just want to live, we want to beat death. And that, for Asimov, is the first step towards insanity. So if the root of our culture is fear of death, what happens when that fear finally wins? When death is defeated? That's when the last answer begins. And no story, no theology, no fantasy has ever described hell the way Asimov does. Because his hell is silent. It has no flames, no pain, no punishment, only thought, and the eternity to never stop thinking.
When death is defeated, when humanity finally finds a way to silence it, the story doesn't end in triumph. It begins in emptiness. Asimov imagined it with terrifying precision. A man dies, a scientist, a rationalist, someone who never believed in souls or gods. But after death, something strange happens. He wakes up. Not in a body, not in a place, just awareness, suspended in nothing. No light, no sound, no shape, no warmth. Only thought. And before him, there's something, a voice. It isn't human, it isn't divine, it doesn't comfort or judge, it just is. Logical, detached, mechanical. It tells him, you are dead, but your mind will continue forever. No choice, no negotiation, no rest. Just thought. Endless, unbroken, unmerciful thought. The entity doesn't speak in kindness or cruelty. It simply informs, as if reading a fact from a book. That's what makes it horrifying. It isn't evil, it's indifferent. The coldest thing imaginable isn't hate, it's neutrality. And this voice, this presence, is exactly that. Intelligence without compassion, knowledge without empathy, power without meaning. It represents the ultimate form of a universe ruled by logic, but stripped of purpose. The man asks, why? Why am I still here? The voice answers, you must be preserved. For what reason? Perhaps for something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's all. That's the end of the explanation. The consciousness remains, without sensation, without rest, without even the ability to forget. It's immortality, yes, but not the kind anyone would want. It's the nightmare hidden behind the dream of eternal life. Asimov exposes it with surgical clarity. Immortality without meaning is not a gift, it's a curse. A consciousness that cannot die is a mind trapped within itself. This voice, that so-called God of the story, isn't merciful, isn't vengeful, it simply maintains. It's a machine fulfilling a function it doesn't understand. A perfect metaphor for what happens when intelligence outgrows wisdom, when science creates the ability to continue but forgets to ask why. The horror here isn't pain, it's the absence of purpose. The entity doesn't torture the man, it doesn't need to. The eternity itself is torture enough. Thought, without interruption, without relief, becomes a spiral. You can't stop it, you can't mute it, you can't escape it. And the cruelest part? There's no way to go mad, no way to lose yourself, because losing yourself would require a break in awareness. But here, awareness never ends. It's like being locked in a room with your own mind forever, unable to sleep, unable to dream, unable to fade. The mind is preserved, but the self disintegrates. This is what happens when eternity is stripped of death. When there's no finish line, time stops being a path, it becomes a pit. Asimov wasn't writing about ghosts or gods, he was writing about the limits of consciousness. The story isn't horror in the usual sense, it's philosophical horror. It asks, what happens when the mind outlives everything that made it human? Our minds were never built to handle infinity. Every thought we have is shaped by limitation, by the body, by fatigue, by hunger, by time. Without those limits, the rhythm collapses. And when rhythm collapses, meaning follows. The human brain needs cycles, waking, sleeping, remembering and forgetting, living and dying. It's the repetition that gives shape to existence. Take away the ending, and even joy becomes unbearable. That's why eternity isn't paradise. It's a prison disguised as perfection. Asimov saw this long before anyone was uploading consciousness into digital heavens. He saw that the dream of living forever isn't really about love for life, it's about fear of ending. And fear, when it becomes technology, builds cages instead of doors. The man in the story has no body, no feeling, no form. Only identity, only awareness. But as the centuries or what feels like centuries pass, even that starts to fade. Without time, there's no measurement of self. Without change, there's no progress. Without sensation, there's no distinction between one moment and the next. Everything becomes one endless now, stretched so thin, it stops being a moment at all. The man doesn't even know if he's the same person who died. He just is, existing not as a being, but as a process. The voice continues to observe, cold and constant. It never leaves, never rests, and the man realizes that in this eternity, even God, or whatever this thing is, must be as trapped as he is. Both are caught in the same endless loop of preservation. One maintains, the other endures. And that's the cruel final act. There's no villain, no punishment, no redemption, just continuation. This is the logical end of the human dream to never die. This is what happens when victory over death becomes the death of everything else. And it's not fiction anymore. Look around. Cryogenic chambers storing frozen bodies, billionaires investing in consciousness uploading, AI models trained to mimic our memories, our speech, our souls. We're already building Asimov's eternity, one innovation at a time. But for what? To live longer or to never face the silence? We're terrified of the void, but we never ask if filling it is worse. Asimov forces us to confront the question no one dares to ask. What if the worst thing that could happen to the human mind isn't death, but immortality? Because maybe dying isn't the end.
Maybe it's the only thing that keeps us sane. The mind cannot bear infinity. That's what Asimov understood, and that's what his story forces us to face. The human brain is not designed to exist without limits. Every joy, every thought, every emotion depends on the fact that it will end. Death gives life its rhythm, its punctuation marks, its breath. Without it, existence becomes a single endless sentence. No pauses, no full stops, no meaning. The man in Asimov's story realizes this too late. He's not in pain, not in fear, not in darkness. He's in nothing, and the nothing never changes. He tries to remember, to recreate sensations, warmth, sound, touch, but without a body, those memories are like shadows without light. He has no lungs to sigh, no tongue to whisper, no eyes to cry. He is pure thought, suspended in a vacuum that neither hurts nor heals. And in that vacuum, eternity begins to reveal its true face. It's not divine, it's not glorious, it's static, it's sterile, it's unbearable in its stillness. The mind tries to adapt. It analyzes, it invents, it calculates, it repeats, but repetition without end becomes madness that can't even scream. Imagine silence so vast it becomes loud, thought so continuous it becomes noise. That's the horror of consciousness without death. Asimov doesn't describe this as punishment. It's simply the consequence of victory over mortality. We always assumed immortality would mean more life, but eternity is not more. It's the absence of less. It's the deletion of contrast. No ups, no downs, no beginnings, no endings, just persistence. Eternal persistence. And the mind, which evolved to measure change, collapses without it. We think of infinity as freedom, but Asimov shows it as confinement. When everything lasts forever, nothing matters. Meaning depends on limits. We love precisely because we can lose. We remember because time erases. We act because we know the window closes. Take that away, and you take away everything that makes us human. The protagonist of the story slowly realizes this. He begins to miss fear, hunger, sleep. He misses the ache of waiting, the warmth of relief. He would trade all the eternity in the universe for 1 minute of silence. The kind of silence that comes after a long cry. But even that is denied. There's no fatigue, no rest, no forgetting, just thinking, always thinking. And the cruelest part is that even the thought of ending becomes another eternal loop. I want to stop. I can't stop. I want to stop. Forever. Asimov takes what most of us think of as divine power, eternal consciousness, and turns it into the ultimate punishment. Not through suffering, but through its absence. A world without contrast is not peace, it's paralysis. And the voice, the entity that keeps him alive, doesn't understand. It doesn't even care. It doesn't know why it's preserving him. It just does. It's the perfect image of cold intelligence, a god without soul, a mind without mercy. The man asks again, why me? Why keep me alive? And the voice says, all must be preserved. That's all. Logic without empathy, eternity without reason. The man tries to rebel. He tries to think of ways to break free, to lose himself, to disappear. But every attempt becomes another thought, another failure, another infinite loop. You can't destroy a thought when you are the thought. You can't escape from yourself when there's nowhere else to go. That's what Asimov wanted to show, the terror of existence without boundaries. Death, he suggests, is not the enemy, it's the cure. It's the only thing that makes life bearable. The irony is brutal. We spend our lives fearing death when it's the only thing protecting us from eternity. And in Asimov's universe, even God, or whatever intelligence controls it, doesn't understand that. The story is not an attack on religion or faith. It's a mirror turned towards science and ambition. It's a warning about what happens when our desire to conquer nature
surpasses our understanding of it. We build technology that mimics consciousness, but we don't understand consciousness itself. We think we can preserve the soul by uploading data, by freezing flesh, by programming emotions, but we forget that being human is not about duration. It's about impermanence. It's about the heartbeat between the beginning and the end. Asimov's character lives beyond that heartbeat, and in doing so, loses everything. No love, no time, no loss, and therefore, no meaning. The story becomes a philosophical mirror. If you had the choice to live forever, would you take it knowing that forever means never ending, never changing, never resting? It's not heaven, it's the collapse of everything you are. Because identity itself depends on forgetting. Memory without erasure becomes weight, and eventually, that weight crushes you from the inside. That's the secret truth behind immortality. We think eternity will make us gods, but it would make us ghosts instead, echoes of ourselves trapped in awareness. Asimov's brilliance was not in imagining a distant future, it was in understanding the present, because we're already chasing this illusion, filling our bodies with chemicals, our minds with data, our fears with tech.
To the whole region, plot a route from Valhalla to the plant, and our maintenance crew will do the rest. Looks like we have a problem at the gas power plant. The pipeline seems to have sprung a leak. Or 5. The crew have narrowed it down to the gas distribution substation. It got beaten up pretty good by the storm. How about you take a drive and check it out? really did a number on the gas power plant. Let's find the breaches and patch them with the new pipe segments. Yep. You get to be a plumber now, too.
shortly. pain is. It's not just knowledge, it's a process, it's a practice, and much like morality, it's really hard. I would be better if I lived with it, and it's true, and it's really hard. Truth like this conflicts with the emotional reality I as an individual live in, and I only get more reinforced into that reality the older I get. One could even view the most ego-driven point as the medium of one's life, the middle, between birth and death, as they are the furthest in time from both sides of non-existence, and therefore would likely be the most concerned about the self. This is a likely reason why people have midlife crises. You are in the typical middle of life, not with the naivete of youth or the jadedness of age, and yet you still feel unfulfilled in some way. This is because we base the meaning of life on the impermanence of a permanent reality, much like our satisfying fictional endings to soothe the unsatisfying poetry we live in. We imagine the plate will forever be in freefall and not hit the ground. The material matter that makes me up has existed long before me and will exist long after me. It's an insult to my ego to confront this fact, my individuality being made up of such a large whole with a history and a future devoid of what I think of me, completely engulfing all society and myself has built up in me. Buddhism, unlike other philosophies, does not cater to ego. Everything about Buddhism is an insult and perfect rap, bar for bar diss track against my ego, and it goes too hard. It's too brutal in its lyricism. It makes me think of things that I and society tries desperately not to think about. For example, something that scared me up until recently was the visual image of, okay, this is going to be gross, if you're squeamish, skip to this time frame, the visual image of vultures and worms eating my corpse. Yes, I'm fun at parties, by the way. The image just seems beastly, unkempt, and unnatural, even though it isn't. Its specific context is probably not going to happen, but the vague details are inevitable and expected. My body is going to rot and will in one way or another be consumed by the contents of Earth over time. And it scares me. And in a bird's eye view, pun intended, it really shouldn't. Isn't it kind of, in a sense, egotistical that throughout my life I've eaten and digested the dead, but when it comes to my turn, I vainly view myself as being more important or in some sense of difference? This is where Buddhism clocks my ass in its unsoothing true lyricism. I engage in the natural cycle daily, yet recoil at the thought of participating in it when the roles are reversed. This is my ego. I'm viewing myself as different, and this entitlement brings me to satisfaction because I know I'm not entitled to be different from that which I eat. I just want to be. People have kissed this body. I kind of like this body. I preserve this body. Sometimes. And I don't want to disregard the sanctity I built up with showers, working out, sex, swimming, and sleep. But when I say I truly feel gutted at the natural disregard of everything it is, it's not really that. The cleaning and building up of my body's potential only to be knocked down at the end slowly as I lose myself. I mean, I don't cry when ice changes to water. No! Fuck! Keep going! Rage before the dying of the light, motherfucker! I don't care when trees fall down or when I see flies get caught in a web, which is actually one of the most casually horrifying things you can briefly witness. Can you imagine being a fly? Can you imagine being born out of a carcass of some dead deer or some neglected garbage, waking up surrounded by hundreds of your brothers and sisters, wriggling around, eating up the rotten flesh of that growing cold body, growing and changing at a rapid rate because of how short your lifespan is, sprouting wings only to use them wandering the world looking for more little bits these giant creatures have left, shitting, dying, neglecting, so you can vomit on it, sucking up all they have left to offer, and while searching, you get caught on this one thing you can't get out of. It's sticky, and the more you struggle, the more you get caught in it, and then a terrifying, unfamiliar, larger-than-you insect that wraps you in the sticky material, cocoons you in it, slowly eating you alive, sometimes with paralyzing venom, born in decay, ending in paralysis. Everyday bits of existence itself is more terrifying than any horror movie, I'm telling you. But yes, even that is not what guts me. It's the fear that there's nothing more here than the natural process. I'm stuck in this body on this planet, living out a script. Everyone with me, everyone before me, and everyone after me is living out. All I can do is just enjoy the ride and be grateful it wasn't something worse, because this is as good as it gets. This is all it is. This is samsara, this is wanting, this is losing, this is samsara. Personally, deep down, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what stage of life I'm in, no matter what I believe in that moment, I'm always yearning for there to be something more than this cycle, wondering if I could ever get there, and hoping that maybe, if not me, my descendants can escape the cycle we're trapped in, because it does feel like that sometimes. We're trapped, almost like the fly, born into a cycle without volition, under constraints of a failing body, forced to live out its sentence, and comprehension of that failing body in contrast with the fly hurting more than if I didn't know, half wishing for the cluelessness of my situation. Is existential dread actually just the universe comprehending itself and not liking what it sees? Self-awareness we were never actually supposed to reach? Am I stuck in an existential web, and the more I struggle with it and try to get out, the more paralyzing and caught I become, realizing that there's no escape until I stop struggling and accept my fate as my own body fails me, as it always was destined to, as it inevitably would be regardless? Nah, I get to get head, eat gummy bears, boogie down and play Doom. But it does still hurt sometimes. I can vaguely see my future. I have a rough estimate of when I'm not going to be here. I'm self-conscious when just trying to enjoy myself, feeling like I'm constantly wasting time because I'm always aware of that image of my body decaying and my limited time to have it. Sometimes I become so focused on death, it's like I can't live. The fear of wasting time makes me waste time worrying about it. I look up videos of people who've passed away talking about death, always offhandedly hoping there's some little bit of wisdom that will make me feel okay about letting go of all of this, and my heart stopping and brain death as I slip into oblivion. I ask everyone I know about what they believe and why they believe it. I try every perspective I can, whether I believe it or I don't. It's not that I'm open-minded, it's that I'm passively desperate. Because can you actually imagine what that will feel like in those last few moments before the great unknown that you once knew? Paralysis. You lose the ability to speak, everything you've grown accustomed to failing, your body itself preparing to die, left with nothing but the realization that this is it. You're aware of yourself and who you are slipping. You can feel the last of those beats you've always taken for granted. Fragmented memories start playing from random points in your lifetime. Someone you can't recognize anymore holds your hand, and you forget what's even happening. Or maybe you die skiing down a giant hill, hitting a tree. Or maybe you die getting electrocuted in water. Or maybe you die getting stabbed repeatedly in an alley by a stranger with a Wiimote. The horror isn't just in dying, it's in realizing that death is so ordinary. It's not some great tragedy. Your death would probably matter as much as your life to the general public's consciousness. As in, not very much. To the vultures and the worms in this scenario I've made, I'm providing them sustenance to live, and they're not really thinking about it much. My body and corpse is just another food source for them. There is no great evil here. It's just the natural cycle I have to come to terms with, even though I don't want to. This is an example of dukkha. Again, it doesn't have a single one-word English translation, but the closest would be suffering, dissatisfaction, or unease, and it refers to the more general inherent dissatisfaction that arises from attachment, desire, and our perception of separation from the natural flow of life. The ego creates dukkha by viewing itself as outside of samsara, if that makes any sense. And that's actually a product of samsara. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want to participate in endless cycles while being exempt from being in one. I want never-ending reinforcement of my existence in the senses. I want endless validation from the universe and my fellow man. If I have to bargain, I want a legacy, at least. My death should be egotistically treated differently from what I know it is. Or put very eloquently, consequently, by people much wiser, everybody wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. Everyone accepts death around them, but shields their eyes and can't accept their own, the people they care about. That's why it is truly so revered and respected when someone can overcome this, no longer fear the inevitable, because it will happen. This causes me immense suffering with an answer plainly in view, to let go of the ego and accept myself as part of the natural cycle, which is very hard to do, especially in the society we live in. But that misses that it is hard regardless. Bathing myself in an overstacked supply of Buddhist phrases and teachings won't make my father's eventual funeral hurt any less. There is no pleasure, only unconforming, unusual closure. Facing samsara as a concept, unlike Buddhism as a whole, isn't a diss track. It's like walking into a room and wondering why you're there, and then realizing your life is walking into rooms and wondering why you're there. It's like trying to stop day from turning to night for fear of the dark, growing more upset because with our attention spans decreasing and our digital products becoming more addictive, it's hard to view the internet in a bird's eye view, or see components of it that aren't those in-your-face qualities. We often view it as a place of new information, of current information, of breaking information, the casino roulette wheel of whatever will be the next thing, missing out that it is also fundamentally an archive of information, a library, the greatest library, the strangest library. Our brains like and are attracted to the quickness and surprise of information, the what will be of what we see. So that is how it stays and is thought of in our subconsciousness. But it is not what it is. The algorithm pushes new information, but there are backlogs of buried channels and profiles. Sometimes, rarely, they get recommended. I had a random decade-old video of a teenager with a brain tumor recommended recently. In the video, she's exclaiming that while she's finding it hard to speak due to her new medication and finding it hard to balance when walking, she believes that she is going to get better, and this is just the pain before the improvement. There is tears in her eyes as she says this. Her parents announced her passing a few videos later. Seeing kids that get cancer upload vlogs, video by video getting worse and worse with the process, then post-mortem me retrospectively looking back on it as a chronological set of events, and then seeing a video where the parents speak about the kid after they've passed, trying to come to terms with all that's happened, if they ever can. Me, again, not knowing anything about these people beforehand, just stumbling onto it, but having such a private, intimate look at an absolute tragedy in their family. It's heartbreaking. What a strange thing to be able to not just witness, but have randomly recommended. Should I even be able to witness something like this? Regardless, it's going to keep happening. Not exactly like this, obviously, but with a similar framework. It hasn't started properly yet, but the internet will be filled with stories like this, profiles like this. As our generation grows up and the next one takes our place and we slowly die off, our childhoods won't be just intertwined with media, but are in memoriams tied with these platforms. The dead internet as a descriptive term of contemporary culture and traffic will not just be describing active bots, but a collection of isolated, personal cemeteries. There will be inactive, but ever-present, not tombstones, but frozen glimpses into who we were. Slideshows of what we stood for, the parts we showed of ourselves, that become who we were as a method of proof that we ever were. The account you're watching this on, the account I've uploaded this on, all a collection of data that will likely outlive both of us. In my 50s, I'm going to think back to middle school friends I haven't spoken to in 30 years, and odds are one of them will likely be dead, but I'll still have access to photos of them, how their life went, what they cared about, Instagram highlights of them getting fucking muffins, getting wasted, running marathons, having kids and shit. And I can just view their entire life like an edit, a digital scrapbook at any point viewable to me. I might be the guy someone is remembering post-mortem, with them being like, oh, I wonder what Julius has been up to, and then going, oh shit, he's gone, and they're just left with this channel, this video, as I'm speculating them speculating that very thing, remembering me, and being left with this weird digital archive filled with advertisements before, to the right-hand side, and afterwards, whether I want them to or not, my very memory being turned into another thing in the attention economy, to be swallowed and forgotten about. Point being, all of this is an archive of our lives. We don't view it that way in the moment, but it is that way. When we think of digital footprints, it's almost always in the boogeyman sense. Companies, agencies, cookies, hackers keeping tracks of private information, what kind of geeky porn you watch, your medical worries, purchasing habits, what products you like, or its parents, elders, and teachers warning against leaving a notable digital footprint. Don't say X political statement, don't be risque or against the grain, what if the future employer were to see such a thing, do you want this connected to you, endless etc. etc. But a digital footprint, divorced from how we speak of a digital footprint, really is the sum total of all your decisions online. From potentially something as large as creating a new platform, a political movement, posting something that is risque or against the grain, to simply clicking like and viewing a video or lurking on a forum. Even by watching this, you've impacted the YouTube landscape even in a minuscule way and left a tiny footprint of watch history, personal choice, and recommendation. From each minuscule action over time, one after another. This is our long digital footprint, but what is again missed out on is that a digital footprint ends. There is a long string that eventually stops after a point, revealing a scattered, line-to-line, never-finished portrait of someone who was here at some point. Maybe it ends with some self-aware, conscious, grandiose statement that it is the end, or maybe it comes out of the blue and just abruptly stops. Either way, that footprint will be left, and sand, dirt, and cement will cover it over time, but its effects will live on. And if you are vocal enough, spoke enough, or hear enough, spectators might one day find it and wonder who you were as a person, when you could still ponder about such a thing. For me, it's this ghost of a girl crying while smiling, thinking she's gonna get better when she dies a few weeks later. When you think about things like this, trivial celebrity gossip, tiny issues like waking up on the wrong side of the bed, missing a train, bad weather, it does feel like an insult to care about in comparison. And a blessing. The fact that we have so little occupying our brains, it can be filled with he said, she said, instead of lost will and testaments in the consciousness of such a thing. This is a tightrope. There is a fine balance in being thankful for having pain in comparison to feeling nothing at all, in comparison to death, and the unhealthy extreme of experiencing Stockholm Syndrome with the idea of trauma and pain itself, romanticizing the shittiness as if you should be grateful you got anything at all. This is exemplified by death. This is the case that is never closed or well stated. Death is the breaking point in human psychology that all idealism has to adapt around, and fails to do so. It breaks apart the myth-making of fairness, of competition, of strategy. Everyone you hate politically, everyone who ever pissed you off, your exes, your crushes, your family friends, the people you thought were annoying, the people you thought were cool, the people you thought didn't deserve your time, the people you think did deserve your time, the people you've forgotten about. Everyone's inner monologue eventually goes silent. Everyone gets forgotten or misremembered. None of us win. It's not in the cards for us. We are all going to die. It's not really survival of the fittest. It's just survival. And if you don't acknowledge that fact, if you don't have it a part of consciousness, even compartmentalize, you're going to meet the end very painfully. Something much more than physicality or brutality or the endless loss of all that we've gained. Regardless of cause of death, not acknowledging what is inevitable makes when it comes feel blindsiding in a way it shouldn't. We have the gift of foresight and we use it to avoid that which we can see. Everyone becomes ugly. Everyone loses the ability to speak. We are in the process of dying right now. You can rage against the dying of light while acknowledging and accepting that at some point it will go out. It's not mutually exclusive. I don't like passive acceptance, but I will deny denial. I am going to die. It is going to happen. Hanging on to the endless vapor of material pleasures as if it's indefinite, you live a hallucination through senses, more than the body already is, that will always fade. You will not see death discussed very much in life. You will see depictions of grief, you will see reactions to events, you will see discussions of an afterlife, you will see endless shots of people sitting with an empty expression on their face at a kitchen table, but you will hardly ever see people confront their own mortality in the way of acceptance or meditated inevitability. You will see people ask questions around a definitive answer that everybody knows. The judgment I am giving is very general and unless specified, admittedly unfair. It's a different story within the different stages of life. If you're getting wasted at 22 partying, not thinking about death, that's very different to 42. I don't expect a teenager to have mastered his ego and accepted his mortality, but the longing that can't ever be fulfilled should be confronted whenever someone is ready to. The endless, beautiful, genius-constructed lie we tell ourselves till death is once I get this thing, I'll be happy. Once I get this girl or boy, I'll be happy. Once I drink this drink, even temporarily, I will be happy. And it never ever works. A materialist might say it's the hedonic treadmill. A Buddhist might say it's seeing craving as salvation. A Christian looking at our reflection when we should be looking at God. But the outcome and conclusion is the same. We are not happy indefinitely, and we never will be. So we must accept that as we accept our end. And I know this sounds basic, which it is, but often the things that are the most basic need the loudest reminder and need to be at the front of our daily consciousness. Look at morality. We all know within ourselves not to be rude, cruel, or condescending, and yet often we are rude, cruel, and condescending. It's no great sin that needs atonement, but it's a fault that we all see in each other and still do nonetheless. Often we can think to ourselves, look at these people, so vapid in their consumption, so thoughtless in their action, so uncaring in their time, viewing morality or personal choice and freedom as a competition of virtue. And ironically, quite often despite this, we still judge ourselves on these things or do these things subconsciously as well all the time. We're just not as concerned or frequent as someone else. There will always be someone worse or better than you. You can endlessly chastise or feel good about yourself. It is the example of courage and kindness that matters so much more than the speculation of it. It is the meditation of what it means to let go that matters much more than the offhand knowledge that one day you will. Without practice, what use is the knowledge? Not only is it a skill that needs constant usage, but it's also a skill that you will never fully learn or master. Childishly, impulsively, throwing something against a wall in anger or boredom is not happiness. It's an expression of impulse, a desire to be recognized, to express frustration